This is our temperature, our thermometer that we use to talk about the weather. I'm just gonna get the weather for a second. Okay, so I'm just gonna pretend that I know what the weather is like today. So what I'll tell my friends is, okay, friends, today. So what we taught them was we created a line right here, just to kind of give them an idea. And what they know is, for this line, they know if anything is above this line, the weather feels a little warm. And then they know if anything's under this line, the weather feels a little bit cold. So what I'll tell them is, friends, how do you think the weather feels today? And they'll say cold. And I'll say, oh, what kind of, what do you wear when it's cold? And they'll say jackets, scarves, hats, whatever it is. So, they'll talk about that, and then I'll say, okay, cool. So I want to let you know that today our weather is more than 30 degrees. And my friends will say, okay, it's more than 30. So then usually, but not always, every child is different. Some of my friends will start counting from 30. 30. Okay, it's not 30, it's not 31, 32, 33. So they kind of wait for me to be like, oh, you got it, So then they'll say 34, and I'll say, oh, wow. Yeah, the weather today is 34. How do I write the number 34? What numbers do you hear in 34? And my friends might say, a lot of friends in my class might say 3 and a 4, or a 4 and a 3. So then I'll say, okay, you said a 4 and a 3? Okay, so I'm going to write a 4 and a 3. Is this 34? And they'll say, oh, Miss Amon, it's a 3 and a 4. So it's 34, and they'll say yes. So I'll say, okay, so today's 34 degrees. Yesterday was 23 degrees, for instance. And I'll say, okay, let's look at these two numbers here, 34 and 23. And I'll ask them, friends, yesterday was 23 degrees. Today is 34 degrees. Which one was more? And then one of my friends might say, and this is an example because one of my friends has said this, 34. And I'll say, how do you know that? And he'll say, well, the 4 is bigger than the 3. And I'll say, yeah, you're right. So then I give them an example. Okay, friend, so what if it looked like this? And then I'll ask them, but aren't these the same? And he'll say, yeah. And I'll say, okay, so how do you know that this one is more? And then he might say, well, because 3 is more than 2. So that's just something that, the kids will say. A lot of the kids are familiar with the weather more and less. We've been working on that a lot. So this is a really great question to ask your kids. On to our next one, number 4. So number 4, we usually kind of just write, it just depends on what's going on. So if something was happening the day before that we wanted to discuss, that we found important, or if the routine was going to change this week, for instance, if we had a field trip, or if our, we had somebody coming to the school to talk to the kids, it just depends. We kind of like to give them a heads up about it, just so that they're not confused and that so the routine doesn't feel different to them. So for number 4, we wrote hands. And what we would ask the kids is, what do you see here? What do you notice on the board? And then some of my friends might say, I see a sink, or hands, or soap, or whatever, They'll look at the picture and they kind of just get an idea of what we're going to talk about. And then I'll say, oh, what do you think that means? And they'll say, wash your hands. And I'll say, yeah, it could mean wash your hands. Why do you think I have washing your hands on there? And then someone might say something, and I'll say, yeah. Right now, a lot of my friends are sick, or a lot of people in the whole world are sick. And so we need to make sure that we don't get sick. So the most important thing for us is that we need to wash our hands. So what happens if you don't wash your hands? My friends might say, oh, there's germs, or you might get sick, or whatever the case is. It's just, I can't, all kids have different responses. And then I'll say, yeah, so when you put soap on your hands, it might just you know, help you not get sick, because what are you doing when you put soap on your hands? You're killing all the germs that are on your fingers. So that's just another thing that we might explain to them. Other things you can discuss is, yeah, you might not be talking about something that's going on at school because you're at home, but you could talk about something that's going on at home that you wanted to talk about that maybe you're noticing with them. So this is just an idea of a message board. There's so many things you can do with this. You know, as you notice, we're getting some literacy in here, math, you know, we're learning social skills, we're learning things like behavior, like health, everything. So we usually cover a lot of concepts on this board. So this board, message board is very, very important to our learning. So thank you for watching.